All right. Welcome back to another series of Full Circle. This new one is going to be all about Courses Closed 2024. If you don't know me, I'm Kay. I'm going to be your host for this, and I'm going to be joined by T1G and iFlame. Why don't you go ahead and introduce yourselves?
Hey, I'm T1G. I feel like my name kind of precedes me. I host this, I host Hippo Cup, I do
Mhm.
other stuff in the tournaments, and I'm a mainstay host of and member of the podcast.
Yep, I'm iFlame. I feel like most of you should know me by now as well. I do commentary for Corsace and various other open rank tournaments, and I've been on Full Circle for the last while now. So yeah,
All right. Moving on, we are going to do some results for Courses Closed, and we could just change scene real quick. But yeah, basically Corsai's Close, if you guys don't know, is the sister turn is basically the foil to Corsai's Open, where Corsai's Open is this 4v4 conglomerate and has been, basically the pinnacle every year of tournaments. Corsai's Closed is the 1v1, and it is an invitational rather than an open registration period. And we had a lot of awesome players invited who graciously accepted. So yeah, hopefully we're just gonna be moving on to
yeah, it's
that
a
thing.
very cool lineup this time around. There's a lot of very strong players, some of the best tournament players in the world, of course. And it's going to be a fun one. There's a lot of varied skill sets as well. Lots of very talented speed players, some talented reading players. You'll have a good mix of all the different skill sets thrown in there. Should be taking a look at the quals results
Yeah.
shortly. We'll get those on screen for you in a second.
Yeah. I don't know. We are working on back end stuff here.
Just have to bear with us for a moment. Well, while we're waiting for that, I will talk about some of the results. I won't go into too much detail. Vordy will be on later. But of course, Malashevsky, I think not a surprise to too many people, did end up finishing first overall in the qualifiers by a very solid margin, followed up by worst HR player MCY4 and Henry to round out the top four. It was a little bit closer after Malashevsky. I would say the top, 2 to 4 were quite close. And there's another kind of step from 5 to 10 after that. It was really quite a close field. And it looks like we have the first qualifier result on screen. Malashevsky, we can talk about it in a little bit more detail now. It was an absolutely dominating performance. I see, Aaron, that you put in the doc here. Absolutely insane. Malashevsky's average score was higher than a lot of players' best scores on maps, which is crazy to think about over the entire pool. And Malashevsky was a solid like one rating ahead of, or solid 2 rating points ahead of everybody else. Um, it was impressive.
Yeah, I think nobody doubted that Malashevsky was going to be either at the top or near the top. However, we will see later that the margin of which that he just dominated is absolutely insane. And we're looking at seed number two, worst HR player. Malashevsky beat worst HR player by a higher average score than worst HR player did for seed 16. So seed 16 in this case was Window Life, as we'll see all the way later. But the margin between 1 and 2 is bigger than 2 and 16, and I feel like that's so bizarre. And worst HR player, if we look at his scores, didn't even do that badly. He averaged 570K. He got number 1 on No Mod 4 to the surprise of absolutely no one. Really solid 935K. You know, brilliant number 3 placement on No Mod 3, number 6 on No Mod 1, number 1 on Hidden 2, and number 1 on Hidden 3 as well. So, and these aren't even just bad scores either. Of course, he kind of faltered getting 200K on No Mod 2, but that's not necessarily his skill set, so we kind of expected that.
Yeah, if you take that Nomad 2 score out, like his average jumps up a bit. It obviously still doesn't compare to Malashevsky, but yeah, on the stuff that you expect him to do well on, he did do that. And for somebody that we don't see in 1v1 really much at all, he kind of became like a perma lobby player for the most part outside of that stuff anyway. But for somebody that we don't see in a lot of 1v1s, this is a really impressive performance.
Yeah, and that's one thing that hurts a few of the players in the 1v1s is not being as comfortable on the speed. And so, especially in qualifiers, it does tend to drop your overall performance quite a bit because obviously there's going to be no bans, but especially once you get to the actual matches, assuming there's not, for example, a particularly speed heavy pool, you can usually just ban out most of the very intensive speed maps. And so it's not necessarily as much as a problem. And so Worst HR player is definitely going to be a very scary player for anyone to face in the group stage or the bracket stage. In third, we've got MCY4. This one, maybe a little bit more of a surprise to a lot of people, beating out players like Enri and Emrek. Some really impressive scores. Number 1 on Nomad 2, second on Nomad 3, as well as some solid HR2 and DT2 scores, getting third, or sorry, getting some really solid Hard Rock scores, getting first and fourth on the Hard Rocks, as well as fourth on the DT2. Did have some slightly worse scores, 14th on the DT1, 11th on the Hidden 1, and 10th on the Nomad 1. But so outside of some struggles on the aim maps, just really consistent performances and some really impressive scores.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for
on it.
sure.
Oh, good. Sorry.
Oh, okay. Oh, yeah. Yeah, MCY4 had a huge overperformance. Number 1 on No Mod 2, number 1 on Hard Rock 1, and you know, he has been a force to be reckoned with. He actually improved his Course Ace closed seeding by a significant amount from last year as he was a returning invitee. But even then, across the board, number 2 on No Mod 3, number 6 on No Mod 4, number 7 on Hidden 2, and number 4 on Hard Rock Run. He's just had really solid leaderboard scores all around. Of course, the more mechanics-based kicks, like, you know, he was number 14, unfortunately, on the DT1, and he was number 10 on No Mod 1. So these mechanics-based bits obviously didn't really cater towards him, and that's okay. Because, you know, we look at the general spread of those maps overall, and he kind of falls within the benchmark. And yeah, he performed outstanding. And number 3 seed is nothing to laugh at with an average score of 575,000 points, almost 576.
Yeah, I feel like, MCY4 to me is probably the player I was most impressed by compared to expectations. Like, I think you just anticipate Malashevsky being number 1 seed, right? Like, there's no surprise to see him performing this well. But to me, MCY4, seeding over some of these players that he ended up above, and with the rankings that he was getting on some of these maps, like you mentioned, the number ones on Nomad 2 and Hard Rock 1, et cetera, et cetera. Really impressive stuff to me. I was really happy to see him performing that well and ending up with a seed that turned out to be very highly deserved.
Yeah, so again, MCY4, super outstanding player, and he's been making a lot of great strides. I believe he won Battle of the Box. No, and wait, maybe he didn't. I might be
Oh, who's that?
misremembering, but it was him, Suwagi, and someone else in Battle of the Box who ended up beating Malashevsky, if I remember correctly, in a single elimination tournament. And he also has done really well in Hard Rock Showdown. So super prominent um player in the scene. And we're gonna move on to number 4 seed. We're gonna move on to Enri, which he kind of got duped by the qualifier results calculations, which, if you guys don't know, is gonna be max percent. And a quick rundown of that is that we take the top score on a map and we make that the full value. Everybody else's score that's lower is a percentage of that top value. And we take the average of the values across all 10 maps, and that's the seeding. So, yeah, Henry is gonna be really close to MCY4, only losing it out by 0.03 on the scale rating. So that's if it's adjusted by a factor of 10. So Malashevsky got 90% and Worst HR player got an average of 70. So seed 2, 3, and 4 are within a 1% margin of that, basically. And it's kind of unlucky considering that Henry had done so well with the average that he had gotten, 592K, and he got very, very good leaderboard scores. Number 1 on DT1, number 2 on Hard Rock 2. And just overall a strong placing, getting at least top 6 on all but 2 maps, which is the Hard Rock 2, sorry, it's the Hard Rock 1 and the Nomad 1.
Yeah, I mean, like you mentioned, the actual average score from Henry was the second best of any one of qualifiers. And Henry actually had really good, consistently strong performances on quite a lot of the maps. Really only tanked the qualifier result a little bit by number 11th on Nomad 1 and Hard Rock 1. But outside of those two, was mostly in the top 4 for most maps, slightly below that on Nomads 2 and 3, but consistently had really, really high scores on a lot of maps. And somewhat to be expected, I think. I don't think you really ever put Malashevsky, Worst HR, and Henry outside of the conversation of top 5. It should be on every top 5 list. And so those are the 3 of the players that we come to expect to see at the top. And so it's just another solid performance from Henry.
Yeah, I think, Henry, I put in my mental list of just people who performed like to expectations.
Mhm.
I anticipated him being a top 3 seed. MCY4 jumped over him, as you guys discussed, but you kind of already touched on everything, right? He did well on everything that you would expect him to do well on. Not a super great top tier aim player, so he struggled a little bit on those. But yeah, he did what you would expect of him on everything else. So just the solid performer, very even keel.
Yep. Number 5th, we've got
Number
maybe a little bit more
Number
of a
5th.
surprise.
number
Number
fifth.
5, hey,
Number
listen,
5th.
listen. Number 5, maybe a little bit more of a surprise. It is Flying Tuna with some high highs and some lower lows, getting first on Hidden 1 and DT2, getting third on Nomad 1, but getting 15th on both the Hard Rocks and 13th on the Nomad 2. So based on the qualifier results, we may expect that Tuna is going to have some very clear skill sets that he wants to play into. Maybe going to be avoiding some of those hard rocks and picking some more of those maps like the AIM, potentially like the DTs. But we've seen in the past, I mean, it has been a couple of years now because Tuna did have to take a break for military, but was, I believe, the MVP of OWC in 2021. So we know Tuna can be up there with the best tournament players. And it's really nice to see Tuna back on form for Corsairs closed.
Yeah.
Yeah, Tuna is a legacy pick, and look. He won
He
Corsairs Closed
won
way back in
20.
2021. He got
Yeah.
fucked over by military in 2022, and we couldn't invite
Yeah.
him. And so he came back to Roundtable 2023 and showed everyone that the man just doesn't rust. He performed so well in Roundtable. Everybody saw him live. He was not even on his home setup, and he still performed great. And I will not stop shilling this man because he came back OWC 2023 with Worst HR Player, with Karcher and all these other people, and they got second. They even they booted the United States down to losers bracket. Yes, they ended up losing. However, their performance overall was absolutely insane, and I will not stop, harping about this because of the fact that these people are so undervalued, in my opinion. Like, yes, Tuna is one of the greatest of all time, but they're completely overshadowed consistently by people on the United States team because it's like, oh, the United States won OWC. I don't care. I don't care if they won. Korea still did awesome. And maybe there's a little bit of bias for me because I am a Korean American, but I don't care.
I feel like this could be a
um,
whole spin-off episode.
yeah, the whole spin-off episode. But yeah, going back to the actual topic of discussion, Tuna got number 1 on the things that we expected him to get number 1 on, Hidden 1 and DT2. And super nice showing. He got number 7 on DT1. He got number 7 on No Mod 4, number 6 on No Mod 3, number 3 on No Mod 1. Really substandard scores, of course, on the No Mod 2 and the Hard Rock 2, but that's kind of a given with Tuna's particular skill set.
Yeah, he's always been a guy who's like good at most everything, but not a specialist in the tapping and not a specialist in the low AR. So it is what, and I get, yeah, or small circles, but he's like so good at alt. He's so good at the hidden aim stuff. He's really good at tech. I don't know. I think Kay kind of said it all. I've just never ceased to be impressed by how Tuna just never does badly,
It is
and
incredible.
it's really really cool that he just always performs well.
Yeah, I mean, I think
Years.
yeah, and I think it's fair to say, like, coming back from military service, he didn't really lose any of his abilities. He's right back where he was when he left off. And I think the thing now, compared to 2021, right, is that other tournament players have had time to get better. So now you have players like Malashevsky, worst HR player, and quite a few others that are so good. And the question for me this course is close will be, can Tuna start to, I guess, catch up to some of those players that have been improving very rapidly over the past year and a half?
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think we're gonna move on to seed number 6, Decaden. And Decaden was a pick that um, you know, we had seen really shine. He didn't make it into OWC for 2023, and he showed immense skill and prowess as a player in MREX Grandmaster Cup and just overall in other team tournaments. And this year, we had decided to give him a chance being invited to Courses Closed. And I remember messaging. I was the one who actually sent out the invites this year, and Caden was really ecstatic. I didn't know he was streaming at the time, but he was, and he was completely ecstatic. And I'm so happy that we got him because this is probably, if I remember correctly, like he doesn't play a lot of 1v1 tournaments, so for him to get number 6 is so impressive considering his overall growth as a player, and I'm so happy to see him do so well. Um, with what he has. He's also a mouse player. So shout outs to him. And yeah, so 491,000 average score. He got number 3 on number 2. He got other top 8 scores, no mod 3, no mod 4, hard rock 1, hard rock 2, and DT2. He did of course suffer from the I don't play my skill set in this qualifier. So the hidden's looking a little low, but again, with everybody else in this uh within this tournament, you're not going to do so hot on the skill sets that you don't play.
It feels like it's beginning to be really obvious. Like I feel like the pool did its job here because everybody did well on the stuff you expect them to do well on, and kind of did poorly on the stuff you expect them to do poorly on. And Decaden was another one like that, where he really excelled on the maps in his skill set, and then really struggled on the maps that were not in his skill set. But yeah, coming off his results back in MGC, I was really excited to see him get another chance at a big, super competitive 1v1 tournament. So looking forward to him at that 6th seed to see what he can do if he can make some noise in the bracket stage.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's one of the marks of a good pool. It really separates the skill sets of each player and highlights. I mean, just looking at the qualifiers, you already get a good idea of what each player is strong on, and that's something that a lot of kind of lower difficulty pools don't do quite as well because they can just play just about everything. And if you look at OWC, of course, because it's a 4v4 tournament, the pools have to be quite a bit easier. And so what ends up happening is you have all these top players that can just play everything and get high scores on every map in the pool. Whereas in a 1v1 tournament where the pools are a lot harder, they really have to pick to their specific skill sets and play those well. And we do see them struggle a lot more on the skill sets they aren't as comfortable on. And I think that's really exciting overall. But Decatan, certainly a player with a lot to prove after not getting selected for OWC, has had some really good performances then. And it's really nice to see him getting a 6th seed in such a stacked tournament with lots of competitors. But I think we can move on to seed number 7. Maybe a slight underperformance compared to what we'd expect as a final placement, but not necessarily an underperformance based on what we know of Emrek and his kind of qualifier performances. Is going to be number 7. Of course, had some strong performances. Number 2 on No Mod 4 and number 6 on DT2 as well as Hard Rock 1. But otherwise, just pretty average scores on most of the maps. 7th on No Mod 2, 8th on Hidden 1, as well as Hard Rock 2, 9th on the DT 1, and then 12th, 13th, and 14th were some of his other placements. And I feel like we've seen this quite a lot. Emrek doesn't put in quite as much practice in the early rounds as some of the other players. I feel like tends to place lower in qualifiers, but almost every time ramps up as we get farther and farther into the tournament and really puts on the show as we get into the higher skill cap pools, the later stages. And I think it is really scary as well because Emrek will play against Taquito in the early stages, and Emrek being 7th seed is going to make for some terrifying matchups potentially quite early on. For example, we could see Emrek versus worst HR player as early as the next round, assuming they both win, which would be absolutely insane to see early on. And so it's definitely going to create a lot of interesting matchups having Emrek as a bit of a lower seed.
Yeah, number 7 is not where we were expecting, given that he placed 2nd last year. But okay, I'm gonna cook him. I'm okay. I'm cooking him on Full Circle.
Oh
All
no.
right, so the bro was playing Valorant like 10 minutes before his qualifier results started, and I had to call someone, be like, "Yo, uh, can you get into contact with Emrek? He's supposed to be at qualifier lobby like soon, aka now." And they're really helpful. Shout outs to Rye, love you, bro. He went. He's like, "Yeah, he's getting on," and then Emrek said that he forgot, and I was like, "Oh my gosh, no way." So that's what happened. And I'm just okay, okay. I'm sure he practiced because I feel like if you're cold, like this guy got on with zero warm up, came from Valorant, super cold, probably hasn't touched Osu all of that day, right? But he still managed to get number 7. So I think if he didn't forget and he warmed up properly, he probably could have gotten number 2 or number 3. Like that's just my hunch. But like still, despite his reasonable, like he still got number 2 on No Mod 4, despite all of these awful circumstances. So if that just doesn't show how good Emmerich is, I kind of don't know what will. Like you can have everything go wrong, but still do good. Like that's messed up.
Yeah, I don't know. Emmerich's good, but he should be seating better than 7th, and that's all I'm going to say about that because we were sitting
Yeah.
waiting to hear his name, and it just kept going, and it didn't come until 7th place. So it throws a bit of a wrench in the bracket, but we'll see. He's still the best player in the world, so I mean, not going to be worried until we have cause to be worried.
Yeah, I mean, there is potentially a bit of cause to be worried. I think Emrek obviously has dominated on a lot of the highest skill cap maps. That is, I mean, he's the highest skill cap player in the world. But if you're going up against worst HR player in the second round, that's going to be a competitive match. It's I think a little bit too early to just have an easy time out skill capping a player as good as Forum, and so one way or the other, we're gonna have one of either Emrek or Forum terrorizing the losers bracket very early on in this tournament, and so I do feel a little bad for whoever ends up having to go against them in the losers. But I guess Emrek is the Canada of this Corsairs close.
Yeah. Aaron, do you want anything to add before we
Nope,
move on to number?
nope.
I don't
We
think
go,
so.
Okay.
we go. I don't
Number
need to
number
say any more
8,
than you guys.
we have Faker Cambing, aka Intercambing, aka the man from Chile, but he's our only South American representative. Sorry.
Make South America great again.
I didn't say that. You did. But yeah, Intercambing from Chile. Seed, okay, the seed is actually wrong. It's not supposed to say seed number 15. He's actually seed number 8. So we'll fix that later. But yeah, he'll seed number 8. Uh Smack dab in the middle. He got top 8 on 5 maps and then got kind of scores on everything else. He did bottom number Noma 3. Really really unfortunate, but if you look at the spread of scores, everybody kind of was around that range. He was just really unlucky and was the bottom of the barrel for that one. But overall, he didn't trail that far behind compared to Emmerich, 47k average, and I think that he unfortunately wasn't invited last year because of some external factors and internal factors that wasn't considered. But this year we brought him back. He was in Courses Closed 2 years ago, so 2022, and I believe he qualified for Courses Closed the first time it happened in 2021. So he's another legacy pick that we had decided to invite back, and he's popping off. If you haven't seen him lately in other tournaments, the guy is a force to be reckoned with, and I think he is, proving that, he's here to stay. Number 8 is definitely nothing to scoff at given, the other players.
I think we're. I think I just this is like the part of the tournament or the results where like everybody just gets really close together, and it's the smallest margins that are going to be separating them. And like I don't know, it feels to me like anyone in this range from literally like 8 on downward, it's just a complete and utter free for all.
Yeah, it's gonna be interesting for sure. I will say Intercamming is another one of those players that has some kind of higher highs and lower lows, has some really solid scores on the Hard Rock CTs, some lower scores on some of the maps that Kay mentioned. And so it's interesting how many players we have this tournament compared to previous ones that are just kind of getting very high scores on certain skill sets and very low scores on others. Whereas generally, I feel like we have a decent amount of players who are just kind of get more average scores on just about everything, but we really only have one or two this time around. So definitely interesting to see. And I mean, I won't spoil it yet for those of you who don't know, but I think based on the skill sets of Intercambing and our ninth seed, it's gonna make for a super interesting um, first matchup there between 8 and 9. Kay, did you have anything else to add to this before we reveal the ninth seed?
Um, no, because I can't legally say this on stream
All right,
because
moving on then.
Yikes.
In the start of our bottom half, we have got Kriller in the ninth seed. This is one of those few players that just had kind of more average scores, had some scores that were a little higher, a fifth on the Nomad 2 and a Hidden 2, a number 6 on the Hidden 1, and then quite a few 8th and ninth places with a few performances that were lower, 13th on the DT2 and the Nomad 4, along with 12th on the Nomad 2. But this is going to be a really interesting matchup for me because we have Kriller versus Intercambing in the first round, the 8th versus the ninth seed matchup. And I won't go into too much detail because I'll save it for when we talk about the predictions. But I feel like they have quite a few overlapping skill sets. And unlike a lot of the other matchups, we're going to see a lot of very contested picks that could easily go either way. In my mind, this is easily going to be one of the closest and most fun matches we see in the first round.
8 and 9 are always going to be close, in my opinion,
Yeah.
especially in something as high level as Courses Closed. You look at our roster, right? Our roster of 16. It's very hard in general to be like, this guy is definitely going O2, or this guy is definitely, not
Mhm.
making it past quarterfinals or whatever. And I think that's the main issue because and that's kind of the fun in it too, no? Because you look at all of these people and the pressure is really on 8 and 9 going up against each other. But Kriller didn't do too shabby on the hiddens and, Hard Rock 1, DT1. He did pretty okay on. He wasn't the best, but he certainly wasn't the worst, and I think that's what got him seed number 9 there. Um, and yeah, so I think Aaron, do you have anything to add?
Looking forward to this match. I think it's an interesting stylistic matchup, but that's more for when we get there. So
Mhm.
no, I think you guys pretty much covered it all for the Kriller.
Yeah. Seed number 10, we have Taquito from the United States. Very well known player, was the captain of the OWC roster this past year, where they won once again. And Taquito has been very good for quite a long time, especially good in the 1v1s and especially good on the hidden picks. But this time around, had a few pretty solid performances. Number second on the No Mod 1 was a big
Number
one.
second.
And then there was fourth on hidden 2, pretty
Number fourth.
expected. And fifth, number fifth.
Number fifth.
I hate it here. I'm just getting bullied now. Fifth on Nomad 4. But otherwise, some average scores. Seventh on Nomad 3 Hidden 1. And a few rough ones on the Hard Rocks as expected, 16th and 13th respectively. And then potentially a little bit more surprising was 10th and 15th on the DT1 and DT2. I feel like Taquito has historically been, I mean, not necessarily known for speed, but has been pretty solid at the DTs for the most part. And so maybe a bit of an underperformance there in my mind. But even though Taquito is the 10th seed, I think obviously still a very, very good player and going to be very scary, but does have the misfortune of going up against Emrek, I believe, in the first round. So it's a little bit unlucky.
I think the best time to face MREC is in the early rounds, though, right?
That's also true. Yeah.
Before you get out skill capped. You know, if he's ever gonna get upset, it's gonna be on an early round pool where he doesn't just get to say, "Oh, right, this is 9 stars and my name is MREC." So I think it's gonna be that's gonna be interesting. But yeah, the thing about his like tapping is really interesting because I feel like you said, you expect him to do a little bit better on the DTs. I've also seen him perform really well on some hard rock ones lately, especially
Yeah.
like in Cup. He had some good scores, so a little surprised that he bottom scored the hard rock one. But again, just another player who I think did well in the stuff they were expected to do well on. Right, good Nomad 3 score, good Nomad 4 score, good hidden scores. So expected performances there, but unfortunately kind of got dragged down a little by some of those underperformances. But it does mean that who knows, he sets himself up to maybe cause a cool early upset here. You know?
Yeah, the thing about seeds like 8 through 11 is that they're all relatively close in terms of both in terms of the calculation of which we sorted them by and also just by average score. And it really could have gone either way depending on the method, but I mean, of course we decided to do this because it's rewarding you doing really good on something that other people did really shit on versus like you doing really good on something that everyone else did good on. So for example, Henry may have gotten number 1 on DT1, but getting number 1 on something like um Hard Rock 1 was like significantly more important because of the fact that he just did so much better on it than everybody else did. And of course, the infamous Malashevsky Hard Rock 2, where the number 2 score was 360,000 below him. So that just kind of
Yeah.
skyrocketed his values a bit, just a little bit. Um, but yeah, Takeda, really solid player, was always a continuous threat in my opinion, both in 1v1s and in team tournaments. And that is part of the reason why he was once again invited back to Corsair's Close, barring some issues that we have since sorted out. And we're going to be moving on to seed number 11. We have Scroll. Scroll, if you guys don't know, is a Russian player who, in my opinion, just was constantly overlooked until recently. Like he showed up to Emirek's Grandmaster Cup and just swept house. He did incredibly well for someone who was relatively under the radar, in my opinion. Like yes, he made OWC appearances, but for the most part, I feel like there was nothing that shot him into the blue, like made him a household name, for lack of a better phrase.
Yeah, I think Scroll has kind of always been quite solid, but I don't think it's played a lot of 1v1 tournaments. So I think while it has always been very consistent, potentially getting overshadowed a bit by Ciccone in tournaments like OWC. And so it's good that we have tournaments now like MREC Grandmaster Cup and Corsairs Close, where Scroll gets to show off a little bit more. Had some impressive scores as well. Fifth on the No Mod 3, sixth on the Hidden 2 and Hard Rock 2. Did struggle a little bit more than you'd expect on some of the DTs, especially the DT1 getting 15th and the Hard Rock 1 getting 14th. But otherwise, pretty solid scores all around.
Yeah, this is a guy I'm excited to see in the actual matches more so than in the qualifiers. I think because it feels like in the tournaments I've seen him in, like MGC, OWC, etc. He has been a really, really strong match performer and sometimes maybe a little weaker in qualifiers. So some of the stuff that he didn't perform well on in this, maybe he can clean that up, or maybe he can avoid having to play some of those maps in the actual matches. And I don't know, in MGC, it felt like he just kind of found a way to get points and get wins against players where you wouldn't necessarily anticipate it. So excited and curious to see if he can kind of continue that trend here against, that this really high level competition.
Yeah, I think overall, he's gonna be going up against Decaden in round of 16, which is on gonna be this weekend. So I think it's gonna be really interesting to see how that turns out because I feel like we'll talk about it later, but they have quite a few overlapping skill sets. And we're gonna be moving on to seed number 12, Ninaric, who is a returning invitee from last year. He had some very unfortunate circumstances last year. Like I believe, like something went wrong with his mouse, and he
Yeah.
didn't get a replacement in time, so he had to unfortunately FF his, I believe his first or second match. But he still showed a great performance despite having very subpar peripherals, and I think that overall he deserved a second chance, and I think that was kind of the logic that we need or that's like the logic that we had going forward with this decision, is that he deserved a second chance to prove that maybe things will be different this time around.
Yeah, we'll
Of
see.
course. Oh yeah, go go
Go
go go
ahead.
ahead, go.
Oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off, but
No, no, no,
I
go
guess
ahead.
I was gonna say, last tournament, what we did see is, I mean, despite the issues, we saw Interact just absolutely dominate the rest of the field on anything speed related, and kind of struggle quite a bit on most of the other skill sets. This time around, got number fifth and number eighth on the DT picks, but a little bit better on the other skill sets as well. So there's definitely some improvement. But potentially a little bit concerning that he hasn't done as well on some of those faster picks. Of course, there's only one kind of real dedicated speed pick in that DT2 in the qualifiers, so it will be a little bit easier in the pools where there's a bit more speed, but potentially somewhat concerning for this year compared to last year's performance. But we'll see.
Yeah, I think another player who I don't know that his qualifier results are necessarily 100% indicative of how he
Yep,
will perform in the actual matches. So
yep. All right, 13th seed was his kitten, more commonly
Oh my
known
god.
as Zoodinator.
oh god,
One day it might be
yeah,
reverted.
I can't
But
believe she still has that name, bro.
I am
Unreal.
shocked as well.
when
Pretty
did
much,
when did she change it? Do we have an accurate
it was
timeline of when she changed it?
right before OWC, I'm
Oh,
pretty
what was
sure,
it? Okay,
around
okay.
that time, yeah. But pretty much results as you'd expect, did very well on the aim picks, the ones, Nomad 1 fourth, Hidden 1 fifth, third on Hard Rock 1 was her best score. Struggled on some of the tapping picks, as you would expect. 16th on both the DTs as well as the Hard Rock 2. 15th on the Nomad 4 and the Nomad 3, and then 14th on the Nomad 2. And I mean, one thing I think that's worth remembering about a tournament like Corsai's Close as we go over these rankings is that you have to put them in context, right? We've seen, especially in OWC, that Zootinator has actually improved her speed and tapping quite a bit, and she can play quite a few of these speed maps. But in a tournament like Corsai's Close, where you have 16 of the absolute best of the best tournament players in the world, being competent on a skill set is not good enough anymore, right? Because almost every other player in the tournament excels at that skill set. So all of a sudden, being competent on a skill set goes from, yeah, you're going to be in the lobby playing it for your team every time it comes up to, well, now you're last place in the fields because everyone is just so insanely good at it. And so I do think her skills are, I think she can definitely outperform her placement. She has placed very well in Corsai's Close. I think it was 2022 where she got second, or maybe that was 2021.
I think that was last. No,
Um,
I think it was last year. It was
It
it was
was
last
2 years. Was it
2
2 years?
years
2 years,
ago,
yeah.
Okay,
So
yeah, it was. Yeah, sorry, it was
2022.
2 years ago. She got second,
because last
and
year was
then
Um,
Emrek and Malshevskin
yeah,
again,
yeah.
okay,
and
okay.
Henry
Uh,
I think got third.
But yeah, going to be another one of those players that has a very clear skill set she wants to pick into, another very clear skill set she wants to avoid.
Yeah, I mean, okay, so putting aside the fact that she got 16th out of 16 on both DTs, and 16th on Hard Rock 2 as well. What I was more surprised by was the 14, 15, or the 15 and 15 on Nomad 3 and Nomad 4.
Yeah.
Because I feel like traditionally, like Zudi's a at least a decent alt player, and generally, like her aim is good enough to carry her through like tech stuff, right? So
Yeah.
I think that this is a pretty massive underperformance. Historically, she's been a good qualifiers player, so I'm not sure, entirely what to chalk this up to. But to me, this was the biggest surprise. I think even possibly even more so than Emrek. I'm not sure. They're both kind of up there because I had her pegged as like top 5, top 6 qualifier.
Mhm.
So to fall all the way down to 13 was really, really surprising. And I think she's going to outperform the seed. I would be surprised if she
Yeah,
doesn't.
I'd agree. Okay, anything else?
Okay, I'm gonna cook her. I'm about to cook her
Oh
in full
boy.
circle.
Oh,
I
Trey is
okay.
just cooking everybody today.
I'm just cooking everybody. I'm in the kitchen today, but I think she was sight reading. Okay, well, number one, she had like 4 tournament matches, I believe, in the same day.
Uh,
So she had a match literally 15. Like she finished her Hard Rock Showdown match 15 minutes before she was supposed to play Corsair's Close, and I think she was sight reading or something close to it. I don't think it's I don't think she practiced as much as she did 2 years ago when she had got second. Like, and of course, like she played her for those who don't know, you can choose your own qualifiers order. She played it in reverse order because she obviously wanted to get like her shittiest maps, for lack of a better phrase, out of the way, which were DT2 and DT1. Um, and I think the year that she had gotten second seed, she actually FC'd DT2 but just got really shit act. Like she just got like 80 something percent, but she had FC, which put her like way above everybody else. And I think that's part of the reason. But this year, I don't know what happened. Like, she got 15th on Nomad 3, Nomad 4. Like, she got dead last on Hard Rock 2, and she got dead last on DT2. Also, fun fact, she and Tuna got a difference of exactly 1 point on Hard Rock 2, which was hilarious, but also very sad at the same time. Like, imagine losing one placement by 1 point. But yeah, moving on. We
yep.
are going to enough cooking. We are going to move to number 14, Ciccone, who was another player that kind of got fucked over by the seeding method because he had gotten an average of 438k, but it was on the maps. But he did really good on the maps that everybody else did. He got number 2 on DT1, but that was really his only standout score, and I think that's kind of what saved him from getting a little bit lower, in the seeding.
Yeah, would have gone from 14th to 11th based on average score, so definitely got screwed over a little bit, but I don't think it would have been a massive difference. Is another one of our returning players from last Corsai's Close, was 10th seed that time around, so not too far off, but maybe a slight underperformance. The biggest surprise to me was those Hard Rocks. 12th on Hard Rock 1, 14th on Hard Rock 2. Obviously, you expect Coney to do well on the DTs, but the Hard Rocks as well have historically been very strong for Ciccone, and I did not quite perform on them last time around, although the Hard Rock 2 was notably quite difficult. But otherwise, did just struggle on quite a few of the maps. 15th on Nomad 1, 16th on Nomad 3. The 9th on Nomad 2 was solid, but 14th seed is going to be quite a tough start. Did beat out the 7th seed in Henry last year in the first round, so it was a tiny upset. This year, starting off, is going to have to face up against MCY4. So that's going to be a lot tougher of a start.
Yeah, dude just got like you guys said, like right, his average score got buoyed by the DT1
Yeah.
score. Everything else was not the greatest. So
Mm.
absolutely just uphill battle for Ciccone now. Like you said, you start down in 14th, and unfortunately, no matter how good you are, it's just a really big disadvantage because you're going to be playing really good players really early. So would have liked to for sure perform better. Um, I'm interested to see if he can turn around the underperformance in qualifiers going into brackets.
At number 15 now,
The
we
actual number
have our
15 now,
the actual number
not the fake number
15.
15.
No, we
Go for
have
broke,
our
please.
second Australian in Corsair's Closed, a secret box. I believe it is Secret Box's first Corsair's Closed. Had some
Yes, it
solid
is.
scores on things like the Hidden 2, getting 8th and 7th on the Hard Rock 2, as well as a few more average scores on 11th on the DTs in the Hard Rock 2. Whereas did struggle a little bit more on the Nomads, where most of the Secret Box's struggles were. Interestingly enough, a Secret Box had quite better scores on average than a couple of the players above him. But Chaconi getting boosted by second on the DT1, Zudi getting boosted by third on the Hard Rock one, and Nineric getting boosted by fifth on the DT1. A Secret Box just doesn't have that one like really high scoring map to kind of boost that average score. And so despite getting around ninth to 10th on most of the maps, which is decently respectable, I'd say, for an average. Has unfortunately fallen down to 15th, I feel, just due to a bit of a lower skill cap and not having any skill set that he was able to necessarily stand out on.
Yeah, Secret Box this year was kind of a wild card pick. Um, and he's been kind of popping off lately just in solo
Mm,
play, but obviously solo versus 1v1s is a bit different. And I think one of the things that we need to focus on, I guess, is like, you can be a great, outstanding 1v1 like or solo player, but if because of the fact that a 1v1 requires so many different skill sets, you kind of are forced into an all-rounder position, or you just ban whatever you're really bad at. And a secret box kind of low rolled, I think, on a lot of maps. I feel like he could have done better, especially on something like the Nomad too. So I feel like a lot of like had in a perfect world, obviously, you could probably do better. But, in something like a tournament match, a tournament qualifiers, you only get one shot.
Yeah, I think the bottom, like, well, everybody at anybody like who doesn't perform to expectations is kind of this situation where it's a little bit of like a coulda, woulda, shoulda.
mm,
Where if you just perform a little better here and there, your seed could be quite a bit higher when everybody's this close together. And Secret Box is another one where a couple of the scores that should be within his wheelhouse based on his skill set could have been a bit higher, maybe should have been a bit higher. Perhaps a little bit of a low roll on the day, hard to say. But like you said, the wild card thing I think is pretty true. Where his skill set is really strong in solo, and it remains to be seen a little bit how he does in this setting. So again, another
mm.
one where maybe if he gets into a match setting where he doesn't have to play stuff that's so far outside of his skill set, he won't be dragged down quite the way that he was here in qualifiers. And just another in kind of a list of people that I guess I'm saying that repeatedly about, but it is the truth
Mhm.
in 1v1, as you said.
Yeah, I mean, again, the players are all just so good, right? Like the Nomad one, Secret Box got 440K, and that was good enough for 16th on the map. So it is just a really tough field. But moving on to our final player, 16th seed is going to be Window Life. Had some strong results on the tapping, as you'd expect. 5th place on Nomad 2, 6th on DT1, 14th on DT2 was quite surprising, bit of an underperformance there. Otherwise, fairly standard scores anywhere from ninth to 12th, aside from the big struggle, which was the hidden 1 and 2, 16th on both of those, unfortunately. Although I don't think that's unexpected. Window Life has been a very good DT, even hard rock player and a Nomad player at times. But even in the team tournaments, we haven't seen Window Life quite get to that comfort level where he can sub in for those hiddens. And so I do think Window Life is going to be strong, especially in the earlier rounds on the DT picks, especially, and some of the tapping as things get a little bit speedier later on into the tournament. But the HDs could be a big problem. We'll see.
For me, Window Life is associated with Scroll because they both turned up in the 1v1 scene in MGC and
Mhm.
kind of
Yeah.
overperformed expectations back then. And still kind of waiting to see if Window Life can make that breakthrough because I think his
Mm.
skill cap is as high as anyone in the United States and just needs to perform like it. Obviously based on his rank, like the dude is really, really highly skilled in mechanics at the bare minimum. And I think there's been a history of players who are really good at mechanics in solo play being able to transition into tournament play, because if you have good aim and good tapping, like you can learn a lot of other things based on those really basic skills in Osu. And so, he got 16th. Somebody had to get 16th. He had a higher average score by a little bit than Secret Box, but the nature of the scoring system didn't favor him there, unfortunately. There were 4 players all at a 4.9 scale, and he's at
Yeah.
4.7. Is a little bit lower. But I think another guy who, when you get into matches, when the pools start to scale a little bit, we're going to truly see what he's made of on, stuff that when he's actually able to choose his picks and go into them intentfully. I think he can outperform, kind of what you might expect based on these results.
Yeah, Window Life really burst onto the scene in quick fashion. I mean, I believe in Course Ace Open 2023 was the best performing DT player across the entire tournament, just based on average individual placements on the DT maps. And so right now it feels like Window Life hasn't quite reached that same tier as obviously the top tournament players, but is still fairly new to the tournament scene in my mind. And so I feel like given a bit more time, we could potentially see Window Life take that next step and be right up there, has shown he has the skill cap. Might just need a bit more time. Definitely an exciting player to keep an eye on. Anything else, Kay?
Nope. I think we kind of covered everything, and we're gonna be moving on to match predictions
Fun
because
part.
everybody wants to see hot
Mm-hmm.
takes, and
Yep.
everybody wants to see hot takes on who we think is better. Blah 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 blah. But anyways, moving on. We are going to be bringing on 2 people. We have Taikani and Vordy. Please introduce yourselves for the audience while Kava gets set up for the first match.
I'm Taikane. I'm a tournament host and map pooler. I'm not actually involved with the matches for Corsairs Close this year, but I was just brought on to help predict. Of course, I know a lot of these players very, very well, so hopefully I'm not crazy off today.
I'm Vordy. I've done some tournament casting. You might have seen me last year, notably in like OWC and stuff. But yeah, here I am, full circle again, keen to see this next round for Corsairs Close. I'm very excited about this tournament. Lots of insanely high players, insanely high skill level players here.
Yeah, so I think we're going to be starting off with the first match, which is Malashevsky versus Window Life. If we could get the graphics on the screen, please. Okay, cool. Yeah, first match is going to be Malashevsky versus Window Life. That's going to be Sunday, 19 UTC. It's actually ironic that it's the first match that we're going to be talking about, but it's actually the last match played. Look, Window Life, I love you, bro. You smash out player, did really good in other 1v1s and team tournaments, but I think you're going to lose Malashevsky. I'll give you 2 points. I'll give you 6-2. Very quick.
That's more hope than I'm giving him.
That's a bold take, honestly.
Yeah, that's more hope than I'm giving him.
I think that
How
Window
much?
Life, if Malashevsky doesn't immediately ban speed, I think Window Life can definitely take 1 point. So that's why I'm giving him the 6-2.
How much hope are you giving him, Aaron?
I'm giving him 1 point max. Malashevsky just takes this stuff seriously from early round to late round. It doesn't matter. He's got the highest skill, probably the highest skill floor of anyone in that, whether it's, round of 64 on a 5-star pool, or, round of 16 here on a 7-star pool. Like, he will always perform super well in early rounds. And he comes ready in a way that not everyone does. So I think this is 6-0 or 6-1 at best. Malashevsky wins this one pretty handily.
Yeah, I would also agree. 1 point max. My prediction is going to be 6-0 for Malashevsky. To me, the most impressive thing about Malashevsky is just his consistency. I mean, I really want to see Window Life do well in just in general. I'm a big fan of his skill set, but it is really incredible how insanely consistent Malashevsky is on every pool and every single tournament, no matter the week. It is incredibly rare that Malashevsky has an off week. You look back to OWC was, I mean, top 3 individual placement every single week, maybe losing out on placement once or twice to Forum or MREC. I mean, it was the exact same in Corsairs Open. And so I would be shocked if Malashevsky drops more than a single point on this one.
Yeah, I think Window Life has his best shot on either No Mod 5 for the 240 BPM speed or DT2 for the 247 BPM speed. One of those maps I can imagine Window Life winning just because Malashevsky like misses once, maybe. But I still think the most likely outcome of this match is probably 6-0. Because other than those 2 maps, I think realistically the chance of winning is really low, and he can ban one of them. So No Mod 2 is another chance, but yeah, not as likely. I'm gonna go Malashevsky here for sure.
Yeah, I'll call it 6-1 Malashevsky. I'll take the Hopium. I mean, the problem is, like, generally you're just looking at mechanics player versus Malashevsky, which generally doesn't end well for insert mechanics player here, unless they're MREC, right? Like, it's just that this guy is so good that the second you see the matchup come up on stream, you're instantly like, okay, I know how this ends, without ever seeing the match. Which is unfortunate for Window Life, and I really do want to believe that he can take one of those speed picks, because I think he is a little bit of a better speed player than Malashevsky, but it is a rough one to start out for Window Life.
Yeah, I think that's a very quick sweep across the board that we think Malashevsky's going to win. I think that's just how it goes. Number 1 versus number 16, a bit unfortunate. We're going to be moving on to the next match, which is going to be worst HR player versus a secret box. Okay.
Here's how a secret box can still
Here's
win.
how a secret box can win.
So,
We pray that worst HR player doesn't ban the stream match, and Box just like full sends it. Surely that's how this works, right?
if you play the maps upside down,
with 1 foot on the chair.
Eee.
Well, Vorty, I'm gonna let you show your Australian man first, so I'm gonna have you go first.
All right. I do think this is nowhere near as like whereas Malashevsky Window Life is like, I can't imagine going further past 6-1. I actually do think this is like, there is a chance of an upset here. I think most likely, at the very least, at bare minimum, I think Box gets 2 points, just because there's 3 tapping maps. You can only ban 1 for the first 4 picks. So it's going to be something like worst HR player bans No Mod 2, No Mod 4, or DT2. And then Box picks the other 2. He will almost definitely win those. I think he's a fantastic tapping player, and I don't think worst HR player is comfy on those maps at all. After that, Box has he can look at Hard Rock 1, Hard Rock 2. He's got DT1. Obviously, there's always a chance at winning the more generic mechanics picks. I think he's going to be pretty solid on hiddens, notably Hidden 1, Hidden 3. Not sure as much as Hidden 2, but I do think Box is going to have a good fighting chance on a lot of the picks here. Now, if I was to be like, if I had to guess like what I think the most likely outcome is, it's going to be something like 6-3 to worst HR player, maybe 6-4. But I do think there is a world where if Box has a really good match, he overperforms, he does really well on a 1 or 2 worst HR player picks and can win his own picks well, there is a chance he wins here as seed 15 going into seed 2. But I do think off the back of worst HR's player's incredible consistency and comfort in what he's good at, it's going to be tough to take those breakpoints. So yeah, I'm thinking something like 6-3, 6-4. But you know, I pray Box wins, man. I'm gonna be watching this cheering for my boy. So yeah, I hope Box proves me wrong and just shatters worst HR player and defies all of our expectations.
Taikani, you want to go next?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah, Taikani, go next.
I wasn't sure. Yeah, I like the idea of Box winning. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility, but you're looking at Forum, who is, I mean, he's risen from, I think in the past year, I've seen Forum go from, I think he's pretty damn good at the technical skill sets, to this guy can be unstoppable the second he wins 1 or 2 picks. Where he just has such good steamroll potential. Box is going to have a little bit of trouble, I think. I would say that Forum probably wins this, but I do think it's going to be close for a lot of the reasons that Vorty stated. Just Box has a lot of good ins with the tapping maps early on. He can contest the mechanics maps later, but against Forum, against a player as consistently good as Forum, I think he might have trouble closing out those mechanics picks, even if they are, winnable.
Yeah, I think I want Box to win. And you know what? Fuck it. I'm gonna inhale the copium. I think Box is gonna win.
Oh
Oh,
my.
I'm just gonna
Y'all
inhale
are
the copium. No,
wild.
no, no,
Okay.
no, no, no. Man, I've been waiting to see Box in a 1v1 forever. Okay? Okay? And I have utmost faith. You know what? I'll 6-5.
Yes,
6 to
dude. 6 to
5.
5. Let's
Six
go.
to
That's
Uh,
five.
GG.
Morty, I'm with
Aaron,
you. I
Cinematic.
want
what
to
do
see
you
Box win, bro.
what do you think about that prediction?
I just don't think there's enough box maps in this pool for Box to win this. I'm sorry. I like the guy and he's a good player, but I think there's too many maps where I look and I'm just like, yeah, Forum crushes on that. I think Box can get like 2 or 3 points. Maybe 4 if things go really well in his favor. I don't see him taking a break point in this match. I think there's too many maps that are too good for Forum, and I think he runs out of picks sooner than Forum does, as well. So I think Forum gets like a break point or two. Once the Nomad 2, Nomad 5, and the DTs are all out of the equation in some fashion or other. And after that, it's like, because you've got the 2 bans, right? So you're going to ban one of those, a couple of those. Yeah, I think Forum wins this. I'll give it. I'll be generous. I'll be what feels like generous and say 6-3, but I don't really see Forum losing
Actually
this. I think the pool
generous,
is just too
man.
good for him.
Yeah, I don't have quite as much hope as you guys. I'm gonna say 6 to 2. I mean, it's pretty much what Vorty said at the start. One tapping map gets banned out. I think Box takes the other 2 tapping picks that are left open. But Forum is just he's too good. He's too consistent. Especially on a pull like this, I think I could definitely see Box taking one more point on the non-tapping picks if he's playing well. But outside of that, I think Forum should be pretty dominant once tapping is mostly picked. And so I do think 6 to 2 is likely, 6 to 3 is possible, but less likely. And just because I don't think we've explicitly said it, it is best of 11, 2 bans. Both players get 1 ban, 2 picks, and then another round of 1 ban each. So our next match, MCY4 versus Chaconi. 3C versus 10. This could be an interesting one.
14.
Um,
14.
yes, sorry, 3 versus 14. I was thinking of his last year's seeding. I mean, why don't we go right to left on this one?
Yeah, Decani go first.
Yeah, I think this matchup's interesting. You have MCY4, who I've never really seen as a particularly great DT player, against Ciccone, who I think is known exactly for playing that mod. So really, it's going to be, in my opinion, the volatility of the DT picks early on for Ciccone that really determine the momentum of the match. I think if Ciccone can take away, runaway DT1, I think is especially crucial because that's just, that's aim and that's something that MCY4 could contest on. I think if Ciccone can take that, he could be locked in for a really, really nice upset win. But I think it's also worth noting MCY4 is really, really good at this star rating. I think it's where I've seen the best MCY4 performances is around this 7.6 margin where, we saw Corsair's closed early last year. He was taking huge, huge points at this star rating. Saw it in Battle of the Box this year. And honestly, just off of that, just star rating alone, I'm willing to say that MCY4 probably wins 6-3 because I'm honestly not sure where Ciccone goes after.
Okay.
Yeah, I think this is going to be definitely a tough one for Ciccone. If there was any skill set I would think on hand that Ciccone is going to be stronger on, it's going to be speed. Notably the Nomad 4 and DT2, because I don't think Nomad 2 is going to be favorable for Ciccone. I mean, MCY4 got number 1 on Nomad 2, which is like a similar BPM. I think it's like 1 BPM difference. So you can expect MCY4 to crush this Nomad 2 as well. After that, the question really for Ciccone is MCY4 gated on 240 BPM stamina? if the answer is no, like if MCY4 can play the speed at this level, as Taikani mentioned, MCY4 is really consistent at even, this slightly lower star level, it's going to be really rough for Chaconi to find many picks because MCY4 popped off on Hard Rocks overall. Chaconi's definitely going to have at least DT1, but MCY4 probably bans it. So yeah, it's a little bit tough. And then the other skill set that MCY4 didn't do as well on, something like the Hidden 1 or the Nomad 1, Chaconi didn't do well on either. It's going to be tough for Chaconi here. I think Chaconi has to hope that he can win on the speed, which I think he probably will regardless. After that, though, I think it's going to be really tough to win any points. So I'm going to guess 6-2 to MCY4 here.
Ooh,
Yeah.
6-2. That's spicy.
Interesting prediction. I do think it is going to be quite a bit closer than the seeding shows. I mean, to be quite honest, before the tournament, I probably would have placed Chaconi ahead of MCY4, but just absolutely popped off. Interestingly, Chaconi was the 10th seed, MCY4 was the 11th seed last close, so they were incredibly close. I mean, to echo a little bit what we've already said, I think Chaconi is going to be better on the speed picks, some of the DTs. I think those maps, some of those mechanics picks in the Nomad 1, the hidden one, that MCY did actually struggle on are going to be much more contested. But I do feel like it was a bit of an underperformance from Chaconi in quals. And so I do think it'll be close. That said, MCY4 is obviously on incredible form right now. And so I'm going to say 6-4 in favor of MCY4.
This matchup feels a little bit like the previous one to me, where it's like there's a good tapping player, like speedy tapping player, and then there's a player who's good at basically everything but that skill set. And yeah, I'm getting in to the point where everything's been said because three people have already discussed this, but I'm just gonna kind of fall in line here where Chaconi kind of runs out of maps because there's only so many picks that he's good at that MCY4 isn't good at, and the stuff that Chaconi's not, or the stuff that MCY4 isn't good at, Chaconi's also not good at. So yeah, this is another situation where like there's a couple picks that are super obvious, and then after that it becomes pretty difficult. And I think that favors MCY4 pretty heavily, being able to go into aim, alt, tech, hidden, not less so, but our hard rock, yes. So I think it's MCY4. I'd like 6-3, give or take. I think Chaconi just runs out of picks, and that's that. And then Kay has to make a prediction.
All right. Yeah, everybody kind of said what I wanted to say. I do think.
Yeah.
Whatever, bro. Yeah, I mean, like, I think that MCY4 does win. I'll be kind of generous because it's still kind of early, and they had actually teamed up together on a similar skill cap pool, which was my tournament in November or December. I hosted it. I should know when it happened. But they both have really reasonable high skill cap. They both did really well. I just think that MCY4 kind of has a little bit more of an edge because he's better on hiddens in particular, so that's why I think he's gonna win. But I'll be generous. I'll be like 6-4. 6-4, yeah.
6-4. So all predictions still in favor of MCY. Our next matchup is going to be another pretty interesting one, one that potentially could be closer than the seeding shows. Decaton versus Scroll. And Kay, you can go first this time since so you can say what you have to say.
Yeah, I think that Decaton is really interesting because he and Squirrel are both similar in skill sets.
Yeah.
Did we lose her?
We lost Kay.
We lost Kay.
All right. I'll go ahead then. She's back.
Did she hurt herself? That sounded concerning.
Yeah,
she's back.
I had dropped something. We are back.
Go. Okay.
I had dropped something. We are good now. Lol. Okay, where was I?
Decaton versus Squirrel.
Yeah, Decaton versus Squirrel. Ooh, this is really hard though. I want like both of these people. I think Squirrel like got a little unlucky with how he was seated. So I think that's part of the reason why this matchup is really close. And I don't know, like looking at the map pool, I think a lot of the maps that they did well on in qualifiers are super, super coin flip. Like Decadent and Squirrel did pretty similarly on stuff like No Mod, like on in qualifiers, like stuff like No Mod 3, stuff like the Hard Rocks. It's oh my god, this is such a tough decision. Oh, if it goes to
It
TB, I
is.
think Decaying just wins because it's a tech tiebreaker. Or tech E tiebreaker. Yeah, tech E tiebreaker.
What's it
Um,
gonna be? I have to pick one.
okay, I'm gonna go Decaying. I'm gonna go Decaying tiebreaker. Decaying 6-5. Decaying 6-5.
A Caden tiebreaker. I will go next because I had the exact same prediction, 6-5 in favor of Decatur. I think this one could be incredibly close. I agree. I feel like Squirrel may have underperformed a bit on certain maps in the qualifiers, notably the Hard Rock one and DT1, and did have a decent average score, especially in the earlier rounds. I think both these players can put up really solid scores on the maps. And I do think the Hard Rocks NDTs will be quite contested. But of course, with the tech tiebreaker, I do think it goes to Decaden. Aaron?
I'm gonna go ahead and pick Decadent as well here. For many of the same reasons. I think there's definitely some similarities in skill sets, but I think Decadent finds just a couple of small advantages somewhere or other over the course of a match. Whether it's maybe leveraging Hard Rock Pool, or leveraging some of the no mods that he could maybe just exceed the score a little bit here and there. I think this is one where it's like the tiniest of margins. I don't know about tiebreaker. I hate predicting tiebreakers.
It's
Uh, just for fun, yeah, it goes to tiebreaker. Decaden wins because these guys are super, super close. Like a lot of the remaining
good.
matchups.
Vorty, are you going to continue the tiebreaker trend?
Oh, I mean, look, I'm thinking 6-4, 6-5 to Decaden. Mainly because I think Scroll has an advantage on the hidden pool overall, but not necessarily hidden one as much. Decaden didn't do too well on the hiddens. That's like the main thing, pulling his quality score behind. But I think the hidden one being more generic and AR 9.6 CS5, which makes it pretty close to like a hidden hard rock map. I think Decaden's going to do pretty well on that, but he's definitely going to be weak on hidden 2, hidden 3, and no mod 6. That's going to be where Scroll can probably find some pretty good picks. After that, though, I think Decaden's stronger on hard rock. He's stronger on tapping. I think he's stronger on no mod overall. I think Decaden just has a lot more of the pool that's to his favor, so I don't really think it's going to go tiebreaker. I think it's going to go like 6-4, maybe even 6-3, but I don't even think it's going to go that far.
Yeah, much as it hurts my heart to say, because I've been following both these players very, very closely for a couple of years, and I love to see both of them perform in tournaments, just pop off, especially Scroll, who I've been touting since just before Corsace last year. Um, Unfortunately, I don't think Scroll has many super good contesting options outside of the DT pool. Where I think the DT pool he can perform slightly better than Decaden. I think he can take some really solid points there. Um, Other than that, as everyone else has said, Decaden just slightly has that little bit of edge, especially in the hard rock. I think so. Unfortunately, I'll have to say 6-4 Decaden. I don't know if Scroll can pull this out. It's gonna be close though. He can, but it's I would say much better chance to Decaden here.
Yep, we've got 5 votes for Decaden, but don't be fooled by the picks. We all agree this is going to be an
I can't
incredibly
wait for
close
Scroll to
match.
win, bro, and then we're just gonna have this extreme
Oh,
Twitter
yes.
flip, and he's just gonna tweet it.
It's like
That
6-2.
I can't wait.
We
Our
really
next
need the
match,
score line. Like maybe next time we should add score
we really
lines and
do.
just
We
be
should
like,
get a
Yeah.
score
guys, I,
line
I know it
graphic.
looks bad, but
Next episode, we can
maybe
get a
next
score line
episode.
graphic.
I mean, I
All
think it's
right.
more work than we should have, but
Yeah.
I mean, maybe it's just to pad in the blow. But we're gonna
Oh,
go next match. Flying Tuna versus Ninarek. That's gonna be happening Saturday, 13 UTC is gonna be the second match of the day, or sorry, of the weekend, and see, I feel like they have really opposite skill sets, and I'll probably go first on this, and I kind of want to have more
Gotta
of
show your
the
Korean
discussion.
brethren.
Look, look, listen, listen. Shut up.
Listen, I'm listening.
I'm listening.
Okay. The thing is, like, I feel like Tuna and Nineric actually have really opposite skill sets.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
that's kind of the issue, is that I both think that they're very capable of getting the points. So here's how I think the match is gonna roll out. Nineric is gonna just ban hidden against Tuna in some regard, and Tuna's gonna ban speed, like from the get-go. So that's gonna be ban number 1 for them. In terms of picks, I think that Tuna's just gonna whittle away at the gimmick that Nineric can't handle, and then Nineric picks most of the mechanics that Tuna can't necessarily play, and they immediately I'm guaranteeing them 2 points at least. So I think the interesting strategy comes from their second set of bans, but I think it's a matter of what's left to ban against the other person.
Yeah.
So oh man, I don't want to go first anymore. I just wanted to talk. Okay, Aaron, go
You just
first. Aaron, go first.
talking on it.
All right.
Do I have to make a
You're
prediction after
you're
she did
up,
all that? She's
Aaron.
not gonna make a prediction.
We'll go back to K after.
Oh lord. No, I think Flying Tuna wins. I think he has a pretty broad skill set in general outside of, maybe some of the, raw speed, which, yeah, like I said, kind of different skill sets in that regard. But again, I think it's kind of another one of these matchups. It feels like we have a lot of these, right, where there's a player who's good at speed and a player who's good at a lot of things other than speed. And the player who's good at speed and not a lot of other things is always going to run out of picks first, because something gets banned and then they pick the couple remaining tapping maps. And then it's like, okay, where do they go now? And I think, again, Tuna has a better skill set overall, a little bit more expansive than what we see from Nineric. And I think he probably leverages that. I think the big question mark for me is probably going to be the Hard Rock pool, because I think Tuna's advantaged in Nomad and Hidden. Nineric is advantaged in DT, but neither of them super strong in the Hard Rocks and the qualifiers. So that could be a very interesting one to see if that gets touched at all. But I think in general, I expect Tuna to, again, just have good picks for himself. And find, a break point once Nineric runs through the speed picks. And it's going to be like a 6-4 win, in pretty close fashion through most of it. But I think Tuna wins in the end.
Yeah, I pretty much agree. I would say Nineric should have the edge on speed tapping picks. I think one of those gets panned out. 2 of those will left open that Nineric can get points on. But I do think Tuna will have the edge on pretty much everything else. And so I'm going to say 6-2 for Tuna, and I will send it over to Vordy.
I think it'll be maybe a bit closer than 6-2, just because as mentioned from T1G, the Hard Rocks are a bit of a question mark for Flying Tuna especially. He got 15 on both Hard Rock 1 and Hard Rock 2 out of 16. Doesn't seem to be too comfy on the small circle size. I do think Hard Rock 3 will still be fine for him, just because it's more of a aim control ulti Hard Rock, which I think he'll be good on. But I think Nineric definitely can pick Hard Rock 1, Hard Rock 2. Obviously can pick the tapping maps that end up being left open. Funnily enough, like Flying Tuna got number 1 on DT2 and qualies, which wasn't really a stamina map as much as it was a finger control / reading DT. So he's going to be really good on double time 3. You can expect that. And Flying Tuna has really surprised me at how good he is at tapping now. Notably in SSOT in the showcase match, I think iFlame was there as well. He kind of crushed the 270 BPM speed map. Like he played really well. He was like neck and neck with like, not too far behind a Kali bed. He was, I think, maybe did better than Emrek on that map. He was right behind, I think, their other tapping player, I think, was Rafis. So, like, he can go toe-to-toe on speed pretty well if he's in form for it. Now, realistically, does he break point Nineric on speed? Probably not, but it could happen, and that could influence, that could lead to a result of a more decisive match. I still think Flying Tuna wins. I think it could be 6-3, maybe even 6-4 if Nineric can win all the speed and the Hard Rocks that are good for him. But other than that, I don't think Flying Tuna gets break pointed here. I think he's going to have at least 5 picks that he's almost definitely going to win. After that, it's all up to Nineric to hold, and he'll probably lose eventually after 3 or 4 picks.
Yeah, I'm inclined to agree with T1G and 40. I think there's a continual lesson to learn that you can't underestimate Nineric. I think a lot of the focus placed on him is on the speed skill sets. But that doesn't mean that he is anywhere close to bad outside of speed. Um, and while I agree that Flying Tuna is just generally better at something like the aim mechanics and the tech, I think Ninarek absolutely still has picks left once the speed maps are gone. And for the reasons you guys have already stated, I'll avoid being a broken record, but I do think it'll be 6-4 for Flying Tuna. I think it will be close.
Yeah. And Kay, have you decided on a prediction number?
Okay,
You
well, I
you
guess
there?
one was decided for me, but yeah, I'm gonna kind of harp around what everybody else said. I think that overall Tuna's a better all-rounder than Ninarek is, but that doesn't discount the fact that everybody knows that he's super good at, like, Ninarek is really good on speed, right? A lot of his plays that
Yeah.
you see from him are very speed-based, but that doesn't discount that he's actually very good at other skill sets. And I think a lot of people overlook that sometimes when especially looking at his 1v1 scores, like, I think he just low rolled a lot of the picks, and yeah, he did do good on the skill set that he's extremely specialized on, but that's because that he's a specialist. Like, he's just so good at these particular skill sets. But that doesn't discount the fact that he's, like, not good at other stuff.
Yep.
And man, I don't like. Fuck. I wanna give Ninareg the win. However, I just think that like, based on how the pool is right now, I think that Tuna just has he just edges out Ninareg on the coin flip match, which is why I'm gonna pick Tuna, even though it was already picked for me. So thanks,
You
Capital.
go. Kay is you're really cooking today.
Yeah, I'm like
But
really cooking today.
we'll move on to Emrek versus Taquito. This is not a matchup you'd expect to be the 7th versus 10 seed, but this is where we find ourselves. I can go first on this one. I think this is the best round, of course, for Taquito to face up against Emrek before the skill cap becomes too much of a problem. Taquito is a very, very strong player, especially in the hidden, so I can get some points there. But Emrek, obviously very strong on the other rounds as well. If he's well practiced, that's always the question, right? Like, how much will Emmerich be practicing the pool? Against a player like Taquito, I would hope some amount. I feel like it's a pretty rough first match for Taquito. Emmerich, of course, is our defending Corsair's closed champion, and so I do think Taquito will get some points, but assuming Emmerich takes the match seriously and prepares for it, I think it's going to be 6-3 in favor of Emmerich. Taikani, you want to go next?
Yeah, I would actually, unfortunately, I would say it's probably maybe closer to 6-2. I think the problem is that a lot of the skill sets that Taquito excels at, Emmerich is also right there. I think the major exception is tech. I think Taquito can absolutely win on tech against Emmerich. But even then, it's not like completely surefire. It's rough. I mean, you're playing the best player in the world. What can you do?
Oh,
Yep.
yeah. I think in this matchup, if what Kay said was true about Emrek playing on no warm up and presumably not being super ready, Emrek still got number 2 on the tech map, so I don't even think Taquito wins tech, honestly. I think Taquito's best chance of winning is on the AR8 hidden and the AR7-ish Nomad 6. And presumably Emrek looks at the Nomad 6, he's like, I'm not practicing that. He bans it, and then Taquito can still win on the AR8 hidden. After that, his best shot is hidden 3. But I'm still assuming Emrek knows his match is happening and warms up. I think this is a 6-1 at best for Taquito. Assuming Taquito wins the low AR. And I think that's really, because like there's scores here that just make no sense for Emrek. Like 14 on number
Yeah.
1 as a number 9 on DT1. Like, you can expect all of his scores to pretty much significantly increase. But I still think Taquito can win on low AR potentially.
Yep. We'll go to Kay next.
Yeah, I think this is another case of, like, had this person seeded a little, this reminds me of? This reminds me of Canada Scene 11 OWC, right? So
Yep.
Emmerich, who could have realistically seeded, like, second or third, seeded 7th. So Taquito just kind of got the unlucky draw, and unironically, I think that messed up the bracket, because if we look later on in the bracket, seed 7, so the winner of this match goes up against the winner between Worst HR Player and Secret Box. So and the winner of and like that side of the bracket actually unironically, except for Worst HR Player, is probably easier for Emmerich than the flip side of the bracket, which has Henry Tuna, Malashevsky, and all these other people. So all the losers of those matches get a really messed up bracket because of the fact that Emmerich plays 7th, and yeah, that's like kind of derailing. But I think Emmerich wins just because he is. Hopefully he's gonna practice and not forget about his match. You know, that's my only hope, right? That's all I can pray for at this point, is that he's not gonna forget, and he's gonna be on Valorant 10 minutes before the match. But I think he should win. He should win, realistically speaking. And Taquito, as good as he may be, I just don't think. I think he's gonna get a lot of points. I'll go like 6-3, 6-3. But Emmerich's gonna win.
All right. So here's how Taquito can win this match.
I mean, clearly, if he forgets the match is happening.
First of all, Emmerich doesn't practice because it's round of 16, and Emmerich's not going to practice for round of 16. Second of all, Taquito bans probably maybe Nomad 5 or D. I think it's Nomad 5 probably. Then he picks in no particular order. He picks Nomad 3, Nomad 4, Nomad 6, Hidden 2, Hidden 3, wins all of those, and steals a breakpoint on something that isn't just like a raw tapping mechanics map. I'm not saying that this is going to happen, but I'm saying that these are all picks that I actually can 100% see a world where Taquito wins them against Emmerich, not necessarily at his absolute best. If Emmerich says absolute best, nobody in the world is beating him. We know that. But if Emmerich is not at 100% peak and Taquito plays a really good match, there are a bunch of picks in this pool that I think are good for him, because there's a bunch of stuff that isn't just raw mechanics. And while Taquito is good at aim and good at tapping, he's also, of course, incredibly well known for alt, incredibly well known for tech, incredibly well known for hidden, which, like, Emmerich, yeah, he's good at, but that's not, like, his specialty. I think there's a world where this match is a lot more interesting than people might expect it to be, because it's the first pool of the tournament, and because I don't know that I anticipate Emmerich being, like, at his absolute best for a match like this. And I think part of me is just, like, a little bit of copium, because I hate people, like, not trying in qualifiers. That kind of bothers me a little bit. But also, I think there's actually picks here that Taquito can win. And just for the sake of being contradictory to everyone else, I'm going to say Taquito wins this 6-4. He gets a breakpoint on something and wins all his own picks.
Yeah, I like it. I think consensus seems to be that if Emmerich takes the practice seriously, he should win. But I completely agree. If he doesn't take it seriously, doesn't prepare enough, Taquito definitely has a good shot at winning this. Emmerich
It
is
would be
clearly just a filthy
insane
rank.
if the prior winner of the tournament lost in the next round of 16 after
It
seedings.
would.
That would be bonkers. Part of me is
Oh.
almost like wants that to happen just for the meme of it.
I mean, or the round after when he has to play worst HR player potentially.
Yeah.
But our next match, Henry versus Zudinator. Vorty, I'll let you go
We got
first.
Filipino versus Filipino.
Yes, we do. You know what, Kay, you can go first on this one.
Okay, so here's how Zudi can win. She practices, and then she
No way.
totally abuses Henry on something. This is how Zudi can win, right? She mental games, right? And then she drags the match on so that Henry gets sleepy. And then if Henry gets tired, then surely that means that he plays worse, right? Because theoretically speaking, if you get tired during the match, you play worse. Surely. That's how this works,
Totally.
right?
Mhm.
Surely that's how this works. Okay, yeah, but realistically, I think that overall Henry just has a wider variety of skill sets compared to Zudi. And I still think that Zudi's a tremendous tournament player. I just think that overall, she's kind of limited by the pool this week, and Henry just has a lot more options. But she definitely is still a force to be reckoned with. I still think that she gets 4 points. I think that it's gonna be really close. I think 6-4. But I still think Henry wins.
Aaron? We'll go left to right on this one.
Yeah, I think this is, okay, so Zudi wins like anything raw aim that's available to her, which is not a long list. There's Nomad 1, Hard Rock 1, arguably Hidden 1, which is normally her super strong suit. Henry probably just bans one of those. He probably just bans Hard Rock 1 with the first ban. And then after that, it gets interesting because Henry is better at tapping, better at tech, right up there with alt, right up there with low AR stuff. So it becomes pretty difficult because, like we were saying, like some of the stuff that Zudia is good at, Henry is just also good at. And when you have similar skill level is in certain skill sets and are better in others, that usually means you win. I think Zudi definitely gets some points on her maps because she's going to do well on anything that's aimed. She's probably going to do well on stuff like the Nomad 3 and the Hidden Pool. But I think overall, I think Henry's just that little bit stronger. I think it's a close one. I think it's like a 6-4. And, Zudi unfortunately bears the burden of seeding 13th and having this kind of matchup in the first round against somebody she doesn't match up super well against. And Henry wins it and moves on.
Yeah, I do think Zudi is probably underseeded, but Henry is just so good. Third place at last Corsair's close. We actually saw this matchup, and Henry beat Zudinator 6-2, I believe, in the semifinals. So a little bit of a higher skill cap pool, but I do think it's going to be similar. I think, like you said, Zudi can take some of the ones and those kinds of picks, potentially an alter or a tech pick here and there. I would say 6-2 or 6-3. I think if I had to pick one, I'll give it 6-2. I don't think this is an amazing pool for Zudi, and so that'll give Henry a bit of an extra boost. But yeah, I think Henry is just too strong.
Yeah, Zudinator's quality results is pretty interesting here because she got 4th, 5th, and 3rd on Nomad 1, Hidden 1, Hard Rock 1, respectively. Got 10th on Hidden 2, and then the rest of the maps are rough, like 14, and then everything else is 15 or 16 overall, including the DT pool where she got 16 on both. Yeah, and the most surprising to me is 16 on Hard Rock too, because I think Zudinator is actually pretty good at precision, so I'm surprised at that score, but maybe just had a rough precision day. Yeah, overall, I think Henry is just significantly better on pretty much any skill set in this situation that isn't just raw aim. He'll probably ban one of them, and then after that, it's just really Hidden 1 or Hard Rock 1, Nomad 1, two of those that Zudi has a chance on. And even then, I still think I rate Henry higher on maybe something like Hidden. Actually, no, maybe Zudinator has advantage on the one. So I'll go 6-2. Zudinator wins 2 of the raw aim picks, and then Henry wins everything else.
There's this strange ethereal force that every time these two play, I get brought back to a full circle episode. No matter the tournament, no matter how involved I am, every time these two are slated to play, I have to be here and talk about how much I know these two players and how much it hurts to know that one of them is gonna lose. Yeah, I'm in full agreement that Henry is a pretty dominant force here. I think Zudinator's an amazing player, but we've seen, just in terms of matchup history, Henry has been performing better. The pool works a lot better for him. And I'm just gonna agree with Vordy and just say it's 6-2 Henry.
Yeah. Last but not least, in fact, I
Definitely
think
not
this will
least.
be one of our
Definitely
more
not least.
exciting matchups.
Yeah.
It is Intercambing versus Kriller, 8 versus 9 seeds. Does anyone want to go first on this one?
I
This
will.
is scary.
Okay,
I
all
will.
right, all
All
you.
right. I'm about to show this. I'm totally gonna be fucking biased here
I wonder for who.
I wonder.
I wonder.
for Krillin.
Oh.
Okay, this matchup is definitely scary, and I think regardless of who is gonna be in this position, the fact that it's number 8 versus number 9 speaks volumes in such a high-powered tournament, and I think this is gonna be the storyline for basically the entire thing, is how good everyone is. And oh man, I just like and I talked about this while we were doing qual results. they kind of have they don't have that many overlapping skill sets in my opinion. Like Kriller's obviously gonna do super, super well on the hiddens, and Intercamming just isn't a strong hidden player. And the fact that he only has one ban in the beginning, what do you outweigh at that point? Do you outweigh the hidden, the low AR hidden, or do you outplay like more of the gimmick? Either way, Kriller definitely is guaranteed 2 points on this pool. I just don't think that intercamming is very strong on the hidden picks as well as some of the other gimmicks. And yeah, sure, intercamming can do really well on the more mechanics based picks, but I just think that overall there are just less of those. A lot of this pool favors Kriller more, and it's kind of hurtful to say that I think Kriller might edge out intercamming just
No
overall.
way.
Like
What?
I
I
am
can't
shocked.
believe I'm saying this. Actually, you know what? I know. No, I'm back. I'm doubling
You
down. I'm
can't
tripling down.
do that. Yeah, I was
I'm
like, there's no
quadrupling
way.
down.
There's no way.
I just saw Yuseiga no mod 4. I'm quadrupling down.
All right,
I don't know.
let's.
Yeah, congrats, Inter. I think it's gonna go 6-5 TB. I just think that on like this tiebreaker, like it has a leaderboard, right? I think Intercamming actually has a really decent score on this. I'm a big fat liar. He doesn't. I don't think he has a score.
Kriller has
Wait,
a
Kriller doesn't have a
Yeah.
score either.
On what? On what? Wait, which map are you talking
On
about?
the
I thought we-
tiebreaker.
Tiebreaker.
Oh,
Wiki
the
Shadows.
I heard
The
you say
tiebreaker
that.
literally has like
Yeah.
MCY4 Malishevsky, Word Chart player Enry, Decadence Growell. Like
Yeah, I'll go next. I think what you were about to say, Aaron, is that Kriller does have the #1 score on our No Mod 4,
You say gun. That score
and
is disgusting, by the way.
it's absurd.
That score is
this is
not
how
reasonable.
Kriller's gonna choke in match, right?
It's a
Like
5x100.
It's 500s, and three of the hundreds are in like the last. Three of the hundreds are in like literally one pattern that he mistimed. It's unreal.
Yeah,
Not that one map means the world, but that score is crazy.
yeah, no. I mean, that score aside, I do think it'll be a close match. I do feel like this pool favors Kriller a little bit more. Kriller has always been very, very good at things like the tech, mechanic type picks, and I mean, just generally well-rounded. We've seen Kriller be able to play speed decently well as well. I think maybe less known for ult, but can still play that reasonably well. Also has put up really good qualifier scores on quite a few maps. And I also think, even just going back to OWC, and even back before then, thinking back to last Corsace Open, previous OWCs, I feel like Kriller has had the higher skill cap and generally outperformed Intercamming in most tournaments we've seen. I think even the hiddens, which is something you'd expect Intercamming to be favored on, Kriller is quite good on getting 5th and 6th on those, whereas Intercamming actually struggles a lot more on the qualifier hiddens. Hard rocks are going to be very contested, speed is going to be very contested, and I think Kriller should have the edge generally on the no mods outside of maybe like a more streamy pick like a no mod 2. And so I'm going to give it to Kriller 6-4.
I'll go next here. So I just looked through the whole pool and I just gave like who I think would win that pick, and I came down to giving both players 7 maps each.
Oh well.
Ooh, okay.
But I do
ooh.
think Kriller's advantage on tiebreaker. It's
Wait,
also
there's
close. Like
15. There's 15 maps outside of the tiebreaker.
oh wait, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Wait a minute. Wait
I
a
think
minute.
I might have
Recount, recount,
control of one.
recount.
But regardless, I think it's like I think both of them have enough picks to win. Some of these are toss-ups though, like No Mod 1 notably. I gave it slightly to Intercamping just because I think that style of No Mod 1 he's favored, but like anybody can win that obviously. A lot of these picks are toss-ups, but I do think overall Kriller's picks are better here, like more of an advantage, notably the hiddens, No Mod 6. I think DT3, I was like, oh, this seems like a Kriller map. I wonder if he's good on it. I checked the leaderboard. He got #1 3 days ago
Yeah.
with an insane accuracy.
And this is
so
what Kriller
what is
does
that?
because I'm in
Yeah.
a server where he like does his RS
Yeah.
and like I saw that's how I saw the Ryusei gun score. That's how I saw the DT3 score. It's like okay, this guy's playing
So-
the pool.
Yeah, I think Kriller has more picks. Obviously, we already talked about Ryusei gun. I think No Mod 3 as well. Intercamping looked pretty not as good on the No Mod 3 skill set. I think there's at least 5 picks where Kriller like definitely wins. I think Intercamping has enough picks to potentially get 5 on his points, but some of them are toss-ups. Like Hard Rock 1, Hard Rock 2, I think he's advantaged, but it's not as much as Kriller's advantaged. I think Intercamping can take it to tiebreaker if he has a great match, but I think on that tiebreaker, I think Kriller's advantage because I think it's more of a techie tiebreaker anyway. So I'm predicting this to go something like 6-3, probably 6-4 to Kriller. I could see it going to tiebreaker, but I think even if it does, it's probably a Kriller tiebreaker. So I think I give it to Kriller, but it depends on Intercamping how far he takes it. And in a world where he takes Kriller to tiebreaker and wins it, I mean, well deserved at that point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think this is the biggest match of the weekend. I think this is very close no matter what. I'm gonna go with a Kriller win for a lot of the reasons stated, especially tech tiebreaker, right?
I'm inhaling a copium as we speak.
I
I
think we
think
are
both these
all in
players are
agreement. It's gonna be
so
close.
good. Lest we forget, Kriller reached finals of Corsairs Close last year.
Yep.
This guy has shown just how insanely good he can be in 1v1. It was Henry who ended up getting third place, who finally stopped Kriller's run through Corsairs Closed 2023. Of course, Intercamping, also a very high placer in previous years, unfortunately didn't play in 2023, but both these players, very, very good. I don't think there's any way this doesn't go 6-4 or 6-5 to either player. But in my opinion, just given the idea of 6-5, I would say Kriller just off that tiebreaker.
I kind of thought this would be a little more divided. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah.
I did too.
I'm gonna just be hopping on the Kriller train here as well, and it's not out of some sort of disrespect for Intercamping because the dude is really good and has consistently performed very, very well. But as others have said, I think there's a little bit more in this pool that favors Kriller than favors Intercamping. Not by a huge margin, mind you, because both of them definitely have their picks, and Intercamping is going to have stuff that he's super strong on. And I think you come into this match, and I think they're both going to want to be super prepared. They're both really serious tournament players, and they both know how to, kind of get hype for these big important matches that are going to be really close. But I think the level Kriller is at recently, he's been playing really well in like the German tournament, for instance. I saw some pretty sick scores. And seeing his Kriller solo scores on this pool as well, I think gives me a little extra faith. Obviously, people mostly don't practice in, with leaderboard scores. So for all I know, Intercamping could have SS'd Ryusegon. You know what I mean? But I think Kriller is at a level right now that I expect him to win this match in very, very tight fashion. This is another one where, maybe one breakpoint 6-4, or maybe just tiebreaker 6-5. But I think Kriller just sort of ekes it out based on, maybe one extra pick or something in this pool compared to Intercamping. But this is one that I'm really, really excited for because 8 versus 9 is always close, and we ended up with a really good 8 versus 9 matchup here. So definitely looking forward to this one.
Yep. A lot of
I'm
exciting matches.
I'm just the only one fucking inhaling copium like no tomorrow. Every single pick, guys. Like I've just been like I'm
Yeah.
about to overdose on copium for real.
I mean, I will add, Kriller last year in closed only lost to Emrek and Henry, which is
Oh yeah, but Amrek is
absolutely
seed number
insane
7,
performance.
okay, and then Henry was seed
True.
number 4. So the bracket's a little messed up. Actually,
True.
speaking of bracket, the winner of this match goes against Malashevsky next round. So
Yeah.
salute
Unfortunate.
to the winner
fun.
of this match because you go up against Malashevsky next week. Like the dreaded 8v9 matchup goes against the winner between 1 and 16. In this case,
Tactically lose the
Malashevsky.
8v9 so you get the 16
bracket.
seed in the first round of losers. Thoughts?
Wait,
It's brilliant.
wait.
Brilliant.
That's the
Intercamping's
strat,
playing
right?
a
So
huge
this
game right here.
Intercamping
Oh
wins because
my.
Kriller doesn't go on to go against Malashevsky. So that's just how he wins, right?
I guess
Like
so.
that's just the strat. Anyway, that's it for predictions. Really lots of hype matches. Obviously, we're gonna be seeing them happen this weekend. First match is gonna be Worst HR player versus a Secret Box, Saturday 11 UTC, and we have and of course if you do exclamation point sheet, they're gonna be on the schedule right there, and you can tune in for all the matches, and hopefully they will be like super awesome. and I think that it will. Yep, they're on the screen for you as well. And special shout out to our artist because we have a new mascot for Corsair's clothes, and her name is Chloe, and she is definitely hitting a home run this season. And check out our Twitter if you want to do art about her, hashtag Corsair's art. And yeah, I hope you guys have a really good time. Thank you to everyone. Thank you T1GI, Bordy, and Takani for joining us this segment. Thank you to Kaba for streaming. Please, also we have a sponsor. We have Momokai. If you use code Corsace for 10% off the Tau Trio, the original Simpad, and the Aurora, I believe, you can get 10% off your purchase. So please head over to Momokai. And yeah, thank you
Thank you
guys.
guys for
We will see
watching.
you next
See
time.
you.
Thank you. Bye.